So, Lone Rider here, and I want to talk about the Green New Deal. And I want to raise a few points about it that don't seem to make sense. Um, One of them, the whole idea of refitting every building in the country to make it more energy efficient. Um, where would people live and work while this was taking place? Just out of curiosity, I mean, if they come to your house and they say we're going to completely start ripping out walls and stuff, where would you work? Where would you live? Right? They come to your office and say, hey, we got to close this part of the office because we got to redo the insulation and the wiring and the windows, make it more energy efficient. Okay, so where are you going to work? You just don't work for a month or 6 months, depending on I mean, seriously, are they going to set up like a tent outside? This is silly, right? And of course, what if the property owner or the people who lease the building or whomever don't want to do that? Well, what are you going to send them to jail or just seize their property in order to renovate it? Right? I mean, in fact, you could argue requiring somebody to completely rebuild their home or their office building or whatever it is. You could argue that amounts to seizure of the property in terms of you're taking complete control over it to the point where you're actually physically altering it so it's not the same when even if you cede control back to the owner when you're done, you're returning a different building, right? It may be better in terms of energy efficiency, but it's a different building. It's not, and that person has no say in it. So you've seized their home, right? You've seized their property. You've seized their office building. And again, where are people going to live and work and whatever while this is taking place? And are there enough contractors in the country to do this? Presumably that would provide jobs for some people, but again, you're seizing control of people's homes, people's businesses. Where are you going to work? Where are you going to, something like my friend's bike shop. He's got heavy equipment in there. He's got like welding tables and lathes and where's he going to move all that stuff to? How's he going to move it? He's an older guy. He can't just throw the lathe over his shoulder and jog down the street with it. And he's not going to put it in his friggin' Saturn and drive it somewhere. And what's he going to do? Set up his shop in his garage? And what about all his customers' bikes, some of which haven't been picked up yet? There may be 50 bikes in there. What's he going to do with all that? Plus his own inventory. I mean, think about this, right? I mentioned the bike shop because it's in an old building. Oh, by the way, that building is not just commercial, it's also semi-residential. There are people who live in apartments above the bike shop. So, not only if you redid the old building to make it more energy efficient, not only would the bike shop go out of business, essentially, the cost of moving everything would just be so prohibitive. I know my friend who runs the shop, as much as he loves bikes, if you made him move everything out of that shop and stay closed for the amount of time he would have to be closed, and keep in mind, a local business, people know where the bike shop is and they go there. If he puts a sign on the door, oh, by the way, I've moved 20 miles away while this is being fixed, nobody's going to go there. I mean, come on. Yeah, but even just the cost of moving everything out so it doesn't get damaged in the process, and so that he can still have the use of it. If he had to move all that stuff, he'd be like, see ya, I'm hauling ass for the beach on North Carolina and I'm going to retire, right? Could you blame him? So this would seriously impact a lot of local businesses. For those local businesses that also function as, advocates for particular activities or information clearinghouses, archery shops, gun shops, bike shops, music shops, places where there's a whole community that revolves around that store. People hang out there. The shop is not only a business, it's also sort of a clubhouse or an advocate for the activity, etc. That entire community may disappear or disperse and be destroyed, essentially. So it's not just that you're putting the person out of business and whoever else works there, and denying people the ability to go there to get the work done on their bikes. It's that the entire, the riding club may disband. The people may no longer have a place where they can go to find out, which trails are good and which roads to ride on safely, and stuff that we just all take for granted because it's a bike shop and that's what you do there. Um, and same thing with other things, like a music shop or an archery shop or whatever, gun store. So it's not just that you're going to put people out of business, like whole communities of people who participate in a sport or an activity could disappear, or at least have to go somewhere else and find another way to make it work. And at the end of the day, those people who get put out of business, what are they going to then do? How are they going to feed their family? How are they going to, and again, what if you don't get put out of business? Oh, so you get furloughed for 6 months while they're working on, let's say, the big office where you work, right? Now, maybe you got vacation time to cover part of that, but at the end of the day, there's no money coming into that company either. So when you do go back to work, what are you not going to get paid for a month, or and then even if they can manage it while you're not working, guess what you're not doing? You don't have money. You're not going to the store and getting new tires for your bike. You're not getting your car serviced. You're not buying a new shirt. You're not, going to the or if you go to the grocery store, because you're going to have to eat. I mean, most people have some food stored in the basement. You might be living on ramen noodles and canned beans for a month if you don't have any money. But the point is, okay, so you still go to the store, but you're only buying half as much stuff and you're stretching it real thin, right? You're not going to buy salmon steaks if you don't know when you're ever going to be working again. So it's not just that you're denied the money and the income of having gainful employment during that time period, or perhaps ever if your job ends. It's that because of that, you're not then spending money on other things, which causes a ripple effect to other, the bike shop you go to doesn't make that money. The archery shop you go to where you might pay to use the range or buy, get your arrows refletched, they're not getting that payment. The grocery store, they might still sell you groceries, but they're not. Maybe you buy $30 worth instead of $50, right? Maybe you buy $50 worth instead of $80. You're not spending as much money there, right? And the stuff you're spending maybe doesn't have as high a markup. You're being more frugal because you have to, because you're out of work. You may put off things like getting new clothes or repairs, scheduled service on your car. At the end of the day, it's going to have an effect beyond, one person's office is closed for a while they're repairing it. And again, the goal is to renovate every building in the country. So it's going to have to go, at some point, everybody's going to be screwed by this. And then, again, and while this is going on, where are these people going to live and work? Right? And what about, I don't know about you, I got stuff here. I got bikes that are pretty cool. I got some nice swords. I got a handful of vintage watches. And people are going to be coming in and out of my house working on it, and they're going to be, I guess I'm going to have to lock all my shit up or put it in storage. I don't trust some guy not to drop a 2x4 on a custom vintage steel racing bike. I don't trust somebody not to, try and rip off one of my, high-end Spyderco knives or one of my watches. It's not that I have a dim view of human nature. It's just I've heard stories from other people. Stuff gets broke, stuff goes missing, etc. So, something as simple as, you want to keep sawdust and paint off of, your stuff. So you're going to have to cover everything with tarps. And come on, right? You're going to have to move out of your house while they do this. Because it's not like they're just renovating the one window in the living room. They're talking about completely retrofitting every building in the house. Insulation, wiring, windows, etc. Where are you going to live while they do that? Where are you going to work while they do that? Yada, yada. It's just... That's just one aspect of this, right? We could talk about the fact that it's going to essentially mean the government taking over whole industries, essentially establishing a Soviet-style command economy, essentially doing away with all the protections in the Bill of Rights, violating every constitutional and civil right of every American in order to make this possible. And then, okay, so you've given the government all that vast power. What, do you think they're ever going to give it back? Right? The short question, I guess, is once you get beyond the absurdity, it's like they're retrofitting every building in the country, presumably even outhouses and barns. And the pragmatic thing, well, how would you do that? And where would people live and work while you're doing that? And who would pay for it? And yada, yada. At the end of the day, you're also left with the fact this would amount to a vast government seizure of power and a complete revamping of the relationship between the government and the citizen in this country that would have basically implications going forward indefinitely. You can't give the government that kind of power over people and then expect them to give it back. You can't, under any pretext, violate that many constitutional and civil rights and then expect those rights not to be violated into the future, either continuously or at some later point in time, because you've already set that precedent. You can't establish a command economy with the government taking control of whole industries and virtually all private property and real estate in the country, to say nothing of people's personal lives and the effects on that. And then just like overlook the fact that, oh, by the way, this means no more Bill of Rights, no more Constitution. What kind of country are we going to be living in then? Because it's no longer going to be a constitutional republic. I'm like you. The short thing here, I guess, is question: can you do any of this without not just having one or two policy changes that are unjust or alarming, but without completely shattering the relationship between the government and the citizen and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all the rest of it? Answer: no. Question: can you do any of this without essentially establishing a Soviet-style top-down command economy? Answer: no. Question: so essentially you would have to give the government vast new powers and basically turn the country into a dictatorship? Answer: yes. Final question: when in history has the government ever been, any government ever been given vast new powers and used them only for good? I'm waiting. When in history has that ever happened? Ever. In thousands of years. I don't hear an answer. Lone Rider up.